Evening, everybody. We gained Justin, but we lost Dan, but still, it's 7:01. We have a quorum and we're gonna get going. So at 7:01, please. The meeting of the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority Citizens Advisory Committee is now called to order. Caroline, if you would be so kind as to take the roll, and if you all remember for roll, go ahead, please. All of you turn your mics on when you hear your name, say that you're here, and then turn your mic off. Thanks so much.
Aaron Gill.
Here.
Brian Kinsella.
Here.
Robert Sipple.
Here.
Allison Falwell. Here. Lauren Lewis.
Here.
Ray Mueller, not present. Raj Banat, not present. Justin Fields.
Here.
Dan Kenny. He will be back shortly. Kathy Sutherland. Here. Steve Mink.
Here.
Lonnie Wong Bissett, not present. Mayor Burton. Here. Ed Von Rennen.
Here. And with that, we have a quorum. At this time, any member of the public will have the opportunity to address the committee on any item not on the agenda. Will be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any of those people or any people fit that description?
None.
Seeing none. Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the previous meeting.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Can I get a
I'll
second?
second.
Thank you so much, Allison. And with that, I will ask for another roll call vote. Mike's on, please.
Aaron Gill.
Yes.
Brian Kinsella.
Yes.
Robert Sipple.
Yes.
Allison Falwell. Lauren Lewis.
Yes.
Justin Fields.
Yep.
Kathy Sutherland. Yes. Steve Mink.
Yes.
Mayor Burton.
Yes.
Ed Von Rennen.
Aye.
Dan.
Awesome. Okay, so minutes approved. This is the time where I'm given a few minutes to talk to you all. I just want to say that we're getting to the hottest part of the year, so keep yourself safe when you're out in the parks, but please get out there. We have a new space opening up soon. I'm sure many of you have had an opportunity to sneak peek, but if you haven't, it will soon be open to the general public. And again, I encourage you to get out there. Once it is open to the public and things die down a little bit, I really strongly encourage you to kind of try to be the first one out at some point so that you can see the Tulio, because it is quite a treat. With that, we will move on to new business. Members of the public will have that same opportunity to comment on any of these items. They will be limited to 3 minutes. The first item on our agenda is an information item on the board approved authority fiscal year 23-24 budget and work plan.
Good evening. Oh, Justina Teen, Fiscal Services Officer. Good evening, committee members. Tonight, we're excited to present to the committee the authority's fiscal year 2023-2024 budget and annual work plan. So typically, the development of a budget and work plan spans over half a year, and staff across all the departments are involved. And approximately around reaching mid-fiscal year, like around November, December timeframe, the executive team and the leadership team start to evaluate our priorities for the next year. And we start engaging project managers to develop the work plan. Around March, we hold a workshop with the board and to discuss these priorities that we envision for upcoming year. And we seek feedback from them. And in June, the board formally adopts the budget and work plan. And today we're happy to kind of provide a general overview of these priorities and the work plan as approved by the board back in June 8th, on June 8th. So in the new fiscal year, the authority's priority, among other projects and initiatives, include delivering projects and programmatic work that focuses on 4 themes. We have the climate, biodiversity, and community resiliency. We also have people and nature, and we have also projects focused on organizational resiliency, and then also some projects really that kind of align with agricultural sustainability. So in terms of the annual work plan, going kind of categorizing it by department, public affairs will continue to be extremely busy this year as we continue to celebrate our 30th anniversary. We'll continue to engage and educate the public about our mission, our work, and our accomplishments. And we'll do so with translated and transcreated content to increase accessibility to nature. We believe that the CAC will be great partners in supporting this public engagement and helping us bring the communities together in our celebrations. And then off the heels of a very successful public meeting last Thursday, we continue deepening our reach into our communities through the work of local agencies, schools, and nonprofits by awarding grants funded by Measure Q and Measure T. And staff and board thank the CAC for all the great work that you guys did with staff to develop the guidelines, updating them, as well as providing the recommendations for award. And in the planning department, we're wrapping up construction at Ma'aino Yakima Coyote Ridge and already looking towards mobilization of the next capital project. And in our work plan, we have several that's focused at Rancho, Cañada de Oro, as well as at Coyote Valley. And additionally, Coyote Valley Conservation Area's master planning, CV camp for short, that we kind of roll off our tongues, will be picking up steam. And the CAC will see itself supporting outreach and raising awareness of this project and the opening of Ma'aino Yakima in our community as well. And in natural resources, this one is actually our newly formed department. We have a slate of projects lined up in the next fiscal year that will support monitoring at our newest preserve, as well as starting a stepping stone project in Laguna Seca and other restoration projects in Coyote Valley, in CV camp, Coyote Valley conservation areas. And then we also have, because it's a new department, we have some programmatic areas that we're developing in the agricultural program, as well as a fuels management program. And then in the field operations department, we'll continue to connect people to nature. More acreage definitely means we need more stewardship needs. So we'll seek increased support from volunteers, which is part of the CAC's work plan as well to kind of boost volunteer recruitment. Utilize new tools to streamline operations. And they'll also partner with the rest of the planning and natural resources departments to roll out best practices in managing our lands and provide these public access amenities. And then finally, the administrative operations department will focus on long-term financial sustainability and succession planning, investments in the staff, the board, and committees such as the CAC will allow the agency to reap the benefits of developing the next generation of leaders. So this includes working with admin staff to implement a recruiting strategy to fill some vacant positions on the CAC, and as well as some training. Now, all these kind of different priorities, projects are on the work plan. How are we going to support the delivery of it next fiscal year? Or actually, we're in the current fiscal year right now, 2023-24. So the approved budget, a breakdown of it by type. We have about a third of the budget is towards the salaries and benefits. We have incoming revenues from 2 sources, mainly District 1, that brings in about 4.2 million, and then Measure T that brings in about 8 million. And then we also have some carryover balances from Measure Q, where before it was replaced by Measure T, we were getting this 8 million. Whatever we don't use in that single fiscal year, we can't bank it and save it. It carries over, and we can use it in the subsequent fiscal years. But what happens is right here, a majority of our budget also goes toward capital expenditures. That includes capital improvement projects, as well as any capital purchases such as acquisitions. And then so the breakdown of the budget, besides the monetary part, the fiscal resources, we also need the human resources. So next fiscal year, we do have a few positions. Most of them are also focused mostly in the field, because as I mentioned, we are opening a new preserve, and we continue to, seek or aim to acquire more land. So we actually would be needing to expand our field operations department with some open space aids. And then with the new department in natural resources, we're also looking to expand our habitat stewardship program, and needing a program manager. A lot of the restoration projects would be headed under that program area. And then with those increasing projects, instead of, ideally, my preference is never to use our money, always to use other people's money. So we would be needing to hire a grant writer. One of our greatest strength is also to leverage our funds. So then we will also be seeking to expand by adding one more grant writer in the conservation initiatives and grant management department. And then with a few more capital projects on the horizon, we'll be adding a planning intern off the heels of a successful internship program that we launched last fiscal year, where we hired a accounting intern as well as a public affairs intern. And so this new intern position will actually be in the planning department to assist and learn about managing capital projects. And that concludes my very brief overview of the budget and work plan. But if there's any questions, the report can be found on our website. We also have a one-page PDF called Budget in Brief that kind of very simply summarizes our 100+ page report. But if there's ever a need for you to search it, or if you need me to email it out to you guys, I can also do that as well. But are there any questions?
Thank you so much,
course.
Justina. And to the committee, I will draw your attention to an exhibit A in our packet that also gives a table of the various projects and their descriptions. This is an information item, so we're not called to act, but if we have questions, have at it, Kathy.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Hi, Justina.
Hi.
One of the things I noticed, and it was in that table,
Mhm.
you spoke about, referred to, native plants and a nursery, right?
Yes,
Okay.
that was a natural resources department project.
Yeah.
It's-
I just wanted to remind folks, because it's been a while since we've been here, but I think Michelle is collecting a lot of seeds, native seeds, and growing them. So, and he was a member of the CAC, so I would suggest you reach out to him to see what he has.
Okay. And I can direct that information to our natural resources
And that's
manager as
really
well.
old information. It's probably like 15 years.
Okay.
It's so old, but went in my brain.
Thanks, Kathy. Anybody else?
I do actually have a
There. So yeah, I'm really excited to see all the new positions that you're going to be bringing on. As someone who's new in human resources for Valley Water myself, it's excited to see that the company is expanding and growing. I guess my question and then my just ask is that also that you look into diversifying your staff. For my new programs at Valley Water, I have to do a lot of research and, diversity hires and how to make diversity in the water and not just with, ethnic diversity or gender diversity, but also across as well too. So just really wanted to make sure that the open space authority is doing the same thing. And then also for your intern positions, where are you looking into staffing those? Like what colleges and universities are you seeking out? And then also will you consider community college students for those positions as well too? Again, in diversity of education. So not every job needs a 4-year degree. So just wanted to make sure that
Thank you.
Christina, did you want to answer any of that regarding which colleges or anything like that, or?
So I can only speak to our accounting intern, because he's at West Valley. No, Deanza. Now I can't even, okay, so I cannot speak to it.
Fair enough. We can't expect you to be an expert on
but,
hiring, but if you had anything,
And then public affairs was Stanford. I have HR in my back pocket right now. So we are looking at local colleges that I'm aware of. So we're posting quite a wide net.
and do you know if they would consider community college candidates? Yes.
Yes.
Did I cover that?
You did.
Thank you. Okay, Aaron, I know you had something, and I'll remind you all that a good way to get my attention is you turn your mic on, I give you a nod, and then I write your name down for a question coming up. You good? You ready?
Yeah, sure.
You got it.
I just want to make, thanks for the presentation. I appreciate that. A comment there on natives and nurseries and things of that nature. A lot of the native growers are going out of business, just because there's not sales out there for a lot of the native materials. So I can reflect upon that in terms of trying to find an outside source as far as someone out there trying to grow these materials. So it might be something that has to be brought in-house to go ahead and do some restoration work, or it may have to be something that's looked at outside of the county, or maybe other parts of the state or the country. So just a comment on the native application and the seeds and stuff like that. So from my experience there.
Thanks, Aaron. Well,
Hello, this is Lonnie. I wanted to ask, following up on the jobs and diversifying, are we gonna be sent the job recs themselves so that we can read through like the descriptions of what each of the jobs entails, and maybe even forward them to individuals that we think would?
With HR, like, I my short answer is yes, but she can give a much better answer than the yes.
Good evening, everybody. Elizabeth Loretto for the record. We do have a practice of distributing all of our job announcements to board staff and CAC once they become ready to post and are active for applications. So that will continue. You'll see those coming in your inbox. We always try to start them off with SCV OSA at the beginning. So hopefully they stand out and or are searchable for you. But if I will just put a quick plug in as you're interacting with the community, if you meet people who are interested in our jobs, our careers page does have a notification sign up, and that email for an email, like kind of a first notice, you could say, of new jobs as they get posted. And those we always include the full like PDF of the job announcement that you could forward to your networks and community.
Thank you.
thank you. I can validate those things. I see those emails, and generally they link to updated things on the website, which is not always the case. So thanks for that. Any other questions at one time? Okay, all right. No members of the public. Okay, so our next
Thank you.
informational item is upcoming outreach opportunities for the CAC by Gavin. Thank you, Gavin.
Strong man. Good evening, members of the Citizens Advisory Committee. My name is Gavin Comstock, the Volunteer Programs Administrator. It's a pleasure to speak with you this evening. You all have received a couple of messages via email from me in the last week and a half regarding upcoming opportunities for collaboration in the field. I'll give you a little follow-up on that here this evening. Specifically, I'll just touch base while we're face-to-face on National Night Out, which is coming up next week, Tuesday, August 1st. I'll highlight a couple strategic asks for this fall. We have a good-looking calendar of events, and just like to put a couple specific moments in front of you that I think you'd be well tailored to support. And then just as a theme underlying my requests for engagement this evening is, as it says there, trainings and support available Should you want any form of specific coaching or preparation for any of these opportunities, I'm more than happy to avail myself to your time and set you up for success. I'd also let you know that if you're willing to go out and give it a try, that's about what it requires. Is most of these are, we need a friendly person that's familiar with the Open Space Authority to go and engage the public. Bring whatever it is you're excited about, answer questions, but without further ado, National Night Out. It's an excellent platform for us to engage with our public. We're going to be active at 7 different locations on Tuesday, August 1st. It's an excellent platform because it really does draw a lot of awareness. As long as we're participating, there's hundreds of sites throughout Santa Clara County. And so we'll be active at the 7 that I've listed here. And at present, have fantastic support lined up. Allison, thanks for your offer to support. We're excited to have you joining us. I think Allison offered help for the Downtown Campbell Neighbors Association. And Lauren, thanks for helping us out. You'll be active at Thousand Oaks. I'd just like to put this in front of you and let you know, we've got excellent volunteers and staff that'll be on site at the locations you see listed in front of you. And I'd frame that as a great chance to just jump in with both feet. You'll have people that are experienced in the engagement booth setting with you, and there's no better way to kind of take a chance to stand off to the side, watch somebody do it real quick, and then boom, another person will undoubtedly approach you in the booth and you can kind of crib off of what you just witnessed. And you've got 1 or if not 2 folks in the booth with you at these events where you can ask questions in real time. Hey, somebody just inquired about this upcoming interpretive event. Do you know anything about that? How can I better support them with an answer next time? So as I said, when it comes to community engagement, a smile really goes a long way. Welcoming somebody into the space and sharing whatever it is that you might be excited about. So if you've done all of our bird walks, then I would encourage you to talk about bird walks. And if you've done a lot of stewardship events with Cat Hill and you really love taking out stink work, I want you to talk about taking out stink work, because that's what will come through in your communications with the public, is whatever you're excited about. And I think they'll be easygoing. So I can share the slide deck as a follow-up to this meeting. This is simply an ask and an invitation for you to join us and get a little experience on the ground. But we are looking really good at those events. I see some eyes glued to it. I don't want to move on. That's why I made the slides. Yeah, National Night Out, just about a week away. If any of you are interested, please do follow up with me either in person or via email. I'd be more than happy to help you out. Scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Yes, please.
I'm not using my cue after Thousand Oaks and after Seven Trees, there's NA. What are those acronyms for?
Thank you, Mara. That stands for Neighborhood Association. So yeah, great question. Sorry for not pointing that out. Should have known better than to not explain my abbreviations. Yeah. Another point of distinction, a great way to have entry into these communities. We're partnered with neighborhood associations through all of those. Yeah. So looking further out, like National Night Out is next week. It's on our doorstep, but I just draw your attention that throughout this coming fall, we're delivering at a very high rate on the volunteer engagement team. Excuse me. Something 32 events currently on the calendar. I mean, that's our bread and butter, so that shouldn't shock anybody. We're out there with stewardship events, with interpretive-led docent hikes, community outreach efforts, preserve stewards. And so we've got a lot happening, but there's a few key dates that when I look over what we have planned, we're going to be active in, maybe 3 or 4 locations all in one day. And that can lead to some need to call in extra support. And so I want to put a few things in front of you that when I look through our calendar stand out to me as being tailor-made for your possible support, either due to partners where I think it kind of caters to your roles here at the Open Space Authority, because of relationships that might be informing our participation, or specifically, as I've called out, locations. So there's places where we have authority funded properties, and just gives you an extra in when you're engaging the public at those events as why they might be interested and why we're there participating. So right off the top, September 30th and October 1st, that's a Saturday, Sunday. Mosaic America is a partner of ours. Those of you might recall our celebration at Tilton on May 6th. One of our speakers that day was from Mosaic America. And as I tell you that, I'm having a brain fart of her name.
Usha Srinivasan.
Thank you, Mark. Excellent speaker. She was from Mosaic America. I participated in their event on short notice last year. As I've mentioned, it's in Board District 5. It's 2 days of outreach. We'll undoubtedly have great volunteer support, but I also just want to put that in front of you. It really does draw an excellent crowd. There's really diverse activities happening that day. And if any of you would be interested in joining us, I can provide a more specific schedule. We usually ask for volunteer support in 4-hour shifts. So that would be, either a early day morning, let's call it 10 to 2 or 1 to 5. I don't have the exact hours from Mosaic for that event. But again, that being a key partner, it struck me as somewhere that you all might be excellent support for that effort. And then, as you can see, October 7th, really busy day. We expect that at that time, Mayano, Yakima, Coyote Ridge will be available for the public to enjoy. And so there'll be some staff-led efforts to make sure we've got the proper support to meet the public wherever they are on that day at Mayano, Yakima. But those 3 events that I've listed there are also on our schedule. And so I want to point out that we'll be participating in Veggie Fest, which is part of Ash Kalra's office. It's a key relationship, great partner that I thought might frame it well for you all. Their event, as I recall, is from 10 to 5. I've got support from Lena Ayen to help lead us at that event. So it's for you all, that's a chance to be in the booth working with staff who have excellent knowledge of what we're up to and events that are upcoming. So kind of like an excellent tutelage should you choose to join us on that day. And then below that, you can see Marshall Cottle Fall Festival, which is a place that I believe we used 20% funding to help create Marshall Cottle Park. And so I just want to frame that opportunity in front of you. That's another great day, engaging the public, Board District 5. And I know just to tie that to other things you've heard tonight, Coyote Valley Conservation Areas, Board District 5 is, an area where we want to start to conversationalize that project among the public. They're just outside of the Coyote Valley Conservation Areas, but certainly have close access. So for example, one thing that might be awesome to discuss with them is Coyote Valley Conservation Areas and why they might want to go there. So last but not least, Spina Farms seasonal engagement. Looking around the room, and I definitely see some volunteer faces that were with us last year, but we'll be making a concerted effort to engage District 1 public at this event, which will be on the Laguna property, better known as kind of the Spina Farms property at this point. October 7th, October 21st, 22nd, October 7th, 21st, 22nd, 28th, 29th, 5 days in October that we'll be out there. It's from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. I've highlighted the 7th because, as I said, we have so much else happening that day. Should any of you want to join us and reach out and let me know, hey, I can step up on that date. Just going to lighten the load a little bit as we move closer to delivery and knowing that we've got the help on board that we'll need. Again, smiling face in the booth really goes a long way. I'd love to support you on that ask. I know this is informational, but call to action, you know what I mean? So, that's the end of my slides. We'll keep it on the poppies because it's better to look at than a dark screen, and I'd happy to answer questions for anybody that has them.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gavin. Regarding neighborhood night out, I consider myself a tiny bit of an expert because the one in my neighborhood happens right across the street from my house, which means I have to put away the chairs every year, except for this year. They'll be somewhere else. But neighborhood night out is awesome. And usually gets pretty good representation from the local community, whether it be council members or police officers. And if you add the open space authority layer on top of it, it sounds like it would be a hoop. So I highly recommend. And Gavin runs an organized bunch, so they make it pretty easy to volunteer. With that, I want to say, Aaron, thank you so much. To all of you, please do use your mic and your light and be recognized by the chair as you are now here.
Thanks, Lauren. Hey, Gavin, just a couple quick questions. Los Poseos, where is that in terms of district line?
That is just a stone's throw from the office, actually. If you were to head out of the office and make your way to Santa Teresa Boulevard and make a left,
Yep.
Los Paseos is just past the shopping center that has
You know?
just past like great, or somebody help me, Bernal and Santa Teresa. There's a shopping center with a grocery outlet bargain market.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
Yes.
Also, in terms of Marshall Cotto and Fall Festival, what will you highlight there?
Well, as I've mentioned, we always want to put programs for the public into the booth. So we'll be very likely promoting Mayano Yakima County Ridge as a resource that's available for the public to visit. And the process of getting a butterfly pass. We'll have a chance to talk about Coyote Valley conservation areas. That's kind of a backbone, connects to a lot that we do. So
Was Marshall Cotto Park kind of an agricultural type of?
it definitely has those themes. Yes.
Is there anything being grown there now?
There is a demonstration garden, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, it's 200 and how many acres? 275 acres? Is that the size of it?
It's a good question. I don't know.
Or 260, somewhere in there? I go by it on a regular basis, and I don't see much being done in terms of the farm stand, agricultural work there, so I know you got a fall harvest festival coming. And it's gonna be difficult to show that in the state it's in, so that's just kind of my question as to how do you show a fall harvest on an agricultural spot without any agriculture?
It seems you have something to offer with respect to this.
Yeah, I have master gardeners in my garden that I manage, and they help run that. They have a huge organization working there. It sells a lot of vegetables to people then, but they also have various booths that are set up. Some of them, one of our gardeners happens to be a landscaper for natives, so she's there and other places. They only expand as they have funds, like everybody does, but it keeps growing and it will get bigger. Now they have, this is the only other garden in the city that has American Disability Act plots for people, minus the other one. I built those. People will come, there'll be a large mass of people there because they want the plants, the vegetables.
And that's at Marshall Cotto.
That's Marshall Cotto, the same thing.
Okay.
It's
I just go by and I see the dilapidated state of it, and I kind of wonder what's to become of this, Valley of Hearts Delight, museum piece.
I could ask for your support and perhaps joining the booth on that day and then give me a report from the ground on what brought it to life and made it a fantastic event.
Sure.
That'd be fantastic. I get a lot of invitations in the fall for harvest themed events, as you could imagine, just being the theme of the season. So
Yeah, it should be. I'm not trying to be overly critical.
not at
Just
all.
Trying to be, kind of observation. And it's, I know they've tried to do stuff in the past and it's been, I was there at the ceremony, the opening,
Mhm.
Farm Bureau. That was roughly 6 years ago. So it's just, in my opinion, it's just disappointing to see where it's at this point. And hopefully we can move forward to something bigger and better. Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome. Thank you.
On that specific note, I don't think we specifically manage that property, so. Again, I would second Gavin's thoughts that like the more of us that show up, report on the state of things and put bugs in the ears of others that we should have more involvement, I would think the better. I do want to keep moving. Bob has something to say about this, Garnetta, Mark, and then Mira has a different point. So in that order, Bob, you had additional thoughts.
Well, part of it is the Master Gardeners has one section of that they're bringing on. COVID just trashed that whole thing, to be blunt. So they put a stop to it. They didn't have their vegetable sales until this year is the first year. So that alone set back. Part of the other part is people have to have money to keep expanding, and also a lot of volunteer staff. I've gone down there and dug things and whatever else myself. So that's part of why it's been slower. I agree with you. I wanted to see it be faster. Most people don't even know the history of the park to begin with. The old owner refused to sell to anybody, even if they have big dollars, unless they turned it into basically open space in the farming community. I loved him for that.
Thank you, Bob. Garnetta,
Yes,
for the record, can we get you to a microphone?
Do your best, Al Green.
okay. As to the vacant uncultivated land, that's UC Extension Program. And they're doing different plants and garden experiments out. So when you drive on 85 and you see the vacant fields down there, there is a volunteer organization that is working on rehabbing and getting the old Victorian house open for the public. But there's an awful lot of work to do. And if you stop in the visitor center, you will see that they recently did an excellent job of displays relative to the turn of the century and the 40s, being a local farmer. So there's a lot, and it's the county parks that acquired it and the UC group. So I would recommend that you stop in the visitor center and see what's going on.
Okay, is it on this topic, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay,
Just very briefly, I mean, most of what I was gonna say has been said already, but yeah, to your point, Aaron, it's managed by County Parks, and I'm sure that they're gonna have a booth there at the event, so it'd be great questions to ask them what their plans are to revitalize it. In the meantime, really our role is as sponsors and to have a booth there like Gavin's been describing, so that we get the word out about the Open Space Authority, and certainly with the agricultural theme, it fits in really well with the work that we do, even if Marshall Cottle isn't necessarily being productive at the moment.
Thank you.
thank you, Mark. Mira?
Thanks. I had a comment about Marshall Cobble Park and some of the outreach efforts that could take place as well too. Our city forest does a volunteer for their team group. I've seen their signs there, so that might be an additional outreach effort to team up with. And then there's also several like roller skating clubs that meet there on Tuesdays and Saturdays. So for outreach efforts to get more people and to talk about Open Space Authority to a new group that may not know about what you do, that might be a great way as well too, to reach out and to SJ Roll Call and Skating with Friends in San Jose. And so those are the two groups that use that park there on Saturday and Tuesday.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Kathy?
Mark, I just had one quick question. All those postcards that I have in English and Vietnamese, are they still relevant?
Through the chair, yeah, Kathy, the postcards you're talking about are for CD Camp, the master planning. And yes, very much so. They give information about how you can sign up for updates about master planning and education.
Actually, right out.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. All right. right, and most of all, thank you, Gavin. I think you are excused unless there are members of the public who have anything to say about this particular item. Now you do. All right, and next, an informational item on membership and recruitment updates for the CAC from our own Caroline. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Caroline Hernandez, clerk of the board. And this is just going to be a brief update on our current membership and our recruitment efforts. So we've been getting into a rhythm now in the last couple of years. In January, at the first meeting of the CAC, staff does let the CAC know that there will be a set of upcoming term expirations. The CAC members are staggered, so every other year, most members will come up for a renewal. Memos go out in April. So staff sent out memos letting members know that if they were interested in getting reappointed, all they would have to do was just respond in an affirmative email. And then staff or myself would collect all the names and bring it before the board for approval. And that happened on June 22nd. So happy to say that the board approved all our new terms for the next 2 years. And so these are our members, their district representation and the new term expirations. So we're happy to have all of you who are present come back for another 2 years. You will notice that our District 6 representative is still not reappointed. We're still kind of in limbo with that position. So we'll get that one straightened out and we'll update the group as that happens. We also have one vacancy that was left by Peter Pham, and this is also an informational item, but a call to action. Peter Pham was actually a student, so it was intriguing to us to have that perspective on the committee, even though we didn't really get to tap into it as much as we would have liked. So one of the thoughts that we had was, as we're doing outreach for this vacancy, and I would like to ask for the CAC's help in this, but perhaps thinking about other schools, community colleges, place where we might get a representative with a different perspective to help round out the committee. So I'm happy to send the group the vacancy, the flyer notice, or the vacancy notice flyer. And if you could help spread the word on that, that would be wonderful. So again, just a quick update for you all, and then I will follow up with you with that information for that CAC vacancy for an at-large position. So basically that means they can live anywhere within the jurisdiction. It does not have to be restricted to one particular district. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Caroline. First off, if anybody has any suggestions with respect to places that you should be looking or something like that, what's the best way to get those down and to you? Should they email you directly?
Just email me. Yeah, I think that's the best way to contact me. Give me a call. You guys have my cell phone, my work cell phone number. So, you know, if it's a quick thought in passing, that works too. Or, you know, I'm happy to be available however you would like to communicate. So.
Okay, and I gather that if anybody has any particular candidates in mind, it would be best to just direct them to apply online.
Yeah, that would be great. Again, I can send you the flyer. This vacancy notification has a QR code link that if you scan it will go directly to the application, so that you can download the application and fill it out.
Cool. Thank you so much. Mira.
You, Chair, I had a suggestion and I'm happy to help you do some recruitment for this at-large position. You know, especially if you're looking for someone who might be from, you know, like a college, you said a student.
Mhm.
I work with 150 college interns at Valley Water, so if you wanted to host a brief informational, like a 15-20 minute about what the CAC is and what we do, I'd be happy to partner with you on something like that, so that you could get the word out.
In person?
Online.
Oh,
We
online,
can
okay.
check Online.
Phew.
Real life online, but I'd be happy to. Partner.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Thank you. Ed,
Just to add to that suggestion, if you have contacts at the West Valley Parks program, that would give you a student perspective.
Right, we do, I believe.
and kind of a double benefit there.
Right, right. Yes, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wanted to speak on this? I don't suspect we do.
So. No one's joined us online?
all right, then I believe our final informational item of the evening is on the wildlife order policy update, a personal favorite of mine. By another personal favorite of mine, Mark Lucker.
Well, thanks for that intro, Mr. Chair. So yeah, Mark Landgraf, External Affairs Manager here at the Authority. Good evening, CAC members. Just wanted to give you some insights that were presented at a recent Wildlife Corridor Working Group Summit in Sacramento, so that you have similar information. I'm just want to be very transparent that I'm not the content expert on the wildlife linkage science, but certainly can talk in pretty good detail about the policy and give you an overview of what was presented on the linkage side as well. So this is a presentation that was given on July 6th in Sacramento through the Wildlife Corridor Working Group Summit, which you know from your packet is a group that we joined back in 2020 and has given us a lot of both access to legislators, relevant agency staff in California, and others regarding the important work that we're doing in Coyote Valley to preserve and enhance wildlife linkage, linking the Santa Cruz Mountains with the Diablo Range. And so the summit itself was well attended by some legislative staff from Sacramento, as well as lots and lots of staff from Caltrans and from the Department of Fish and Wildlife, both of which are very important to inform about not just our work here in Coyote Valley, but statewide about the importance of wildlife linkages across transportation corridors, you know, man-made transportation corridors, and then what we're doing and some of the barriers that we face that the state agencies can help us overcome. So this presentation was given by myself and Marion Vernon, who's with the Peninsula Open Space Trust and is their biology scientist. So the Santa Cruz Mountains that you see here in the distance are essentially an island genetically for megafauna like coyote, like mountain lions, coyotes, bobcats, etc. And so it's very important to maintain those linkages because you know, there are so few places that wildlife can move between the Santa Cruz Mountains and other ranges. If they don't, then the genetics will eventually force those animals to die out because they can't interbreed with other populations. And so this is a really cool map that shows in the darkest yellow colors the potential for connecting habitat areas. So it shows core habitat both in the Santa Cruz Mountains there on the peninsula and in the Diablo Range, and then even some of the mountains to the south of the Santa Cruz Mountains down at the bottom of the map. And so you can very clearly see that broad area going east-west in Coyote Valley. That's a very important potential connectivity area. And we know that, but the science really proves that. And especially when you're talking with agency folks, it's very important to have the anecdotes that you're talking about backed up by the science. And so this shows not only that Coyote Valley has great potential for connectivity given the lack of development there, but also that there are few other areas that link up the Santa Cruz Mountains with other ranges. If you also look at the map towards the south, you can see there's a very narrow band that connects to the Santa Lucia Mountains, which is the next mountain range to the south of the Santa Cruz Mountains. As you're going across 101 there towards Monterey, you cross through that pass area. And so it because that's such a narrow area with much less potential for linkage, it just underscores the importance of Coyote Valley. So the work that partners have done to identify, let me see if there's another, yeah, let me just go to this slide, to identify the vision for a linkage within Coyote Valley was done back in 2017. This report was completed by the Center for Biological Diversity, Post, Open Space Authority, and several scientists to develop this vision. I think most of you by now are familiar with this, but it's still a very important document that shows, in contrast to what the vision was prior to this kind of report for this specific area, which was development of high-tech campuses and housing in both the North Coyote Valley area, which is to the left on that map, and then the Mid Coyote Valley area, kind of in the center. This is a vision for a completely shifted paradigm to one of protected natural areas, restored areas, and then wildlife movement opportunities for animals across the valley. So that 2017 report then led to several follow-on scientific studies for different animal families, as you can see here, for large mammals, reptiles and amphibians, specifically bobcats, mountain lions. So all of that data has been assembled by several partners and has resulted in really phenomenal changes to policy and to an interest in land protection in Coyote Valley, and getting away from those opportunities for development. So as I believe you're all aware, in 2019, these 937 acres were protected by Post, the City of San Jose, and the Open Space Authority at a cost of about $96 million. In the meantime, more land has been protected, and we've now got about 1,550 acres protected collectively in Coyote Valley. And those are now, as we've been talking about, the subject of the master planning effort that's underway. So these areas then have been further studied. One report that came out in 2019 is the Monterey Road Report, or we refer to it internally as the Roadkill Report, although it's not quite as enjoyable a title, but it is really a compilation of data from the Department of Fish and Wildlife and Caltrans, as well as cameras that were set up along Monterey Road and some of these other locations to identify areas where there have been wildlife vehicle collisions. And as you can see, there are a lot of them. 10 times more on Monterey Road than on the other major thoroughfares in the area here in Coyote Valley. So Monterey Road is clearly a significant barrier. And this identifies like which animals at which time were hit. And so this is also really good data for Caltrans, especially to have, but not just Caltrans, because Monterey Road in this area is under the jurisdiction of the City of San Jose and the County of Santa Clara. And so it's really important for us to have that data locally too. So following on that study, there's currently a feasibility study that Post is leading. They've hired consultants, and it's currently underway to determine where the best locations are for wildlife movement. As you saw in the previous slide, maybe I can go back there for just a, whoops, sorry for that. Yeah, not so pleasant slide. Anyway, so you can see that there is a certain, even along Monterey Road, there's a certain concentration of the different areas where wildlife want to cross, and those are because there's protected habitat on either side. I mean, it completely makes sense. But this data then is going into this feasibility study where They're looking at not only where the most important crossing points are, but then how to improve the crossing in those areas, whether it's under crossings under Monterey Road or a wildlife bridge over crossing. That's very likely going to be one of the recommendations coming out of this study. Or if there are other things we can do in the meantime, like reducing the barrier on Monterey Road. So this is also really important because it highlights that Monterey Road in combination with Highway 101 and then some of the other major roads, it's a complex of roadways that need to be addressed comprehensively. And these items now, because of our involvement with the Wildlife Corridor Working Group in Sacramento, are on the maps of the Department of Fish and Wildlife and Caltrans. So they know that these are major barriers. So when there are opportunities to, say, mitigate impact somewhere else from highway projects, they can direct some of that mitigation here to Coyote Valley. So, and part of the reason that, you know, this work is being done and that this is a very timely opportunity to be talking to state staff and legislators is I believe you're aware through an email that on June 30th, there was a mountain lion killed on the highway, I'm sorry, on Santa Teresa Boulevard, right at our Tulare Meadows Preserve. A gentleman who works in the area pulled it off the roadway so that it wouldn't get further damaged and notified us immediately. We called Department of Fish and Wildlife. They sent a warden out to pick the animal up. Somebody had already taken it. So it's not in the hands of the Department of Fish and Wildlife, despite our best efforts. And that's actually an illegal activity. So now there's an investigation underway with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. It's an animal that is a candidate for listing. And so there's no ability for anybody to, you know, take it legally without a permit from the Department of Fish and Wildlife. So hopefully they find out who has it. So, and I'm not an expert in this area, and through the chair, I only know that it's a juvenile. So.
Looks like
Okay, yeah, I don't know exactly, but a juvenile, yeah. So, you know, we had a slide here where we were talking about the master planning and urged folks in Sacramento to get involved so that we could have their inputs as well as inputs from our local community. And then we also talked about why our conservation work so far has been successful in Coyote Valley. And there are several foundations for that success. You know, the vision that was illuminated in 2017 with the linkage report was one big part of it, but also that there are a lot of different partners working at different jurisdictional levels. City, county has been such a great partner, especially with agricultural protection in Mid-Coyote Valley. At the state and then even at the federal level, plus nonprofits and several other public agencies. We also have been building that network of conserved lands, and there are a lot of long-term planning efforts. I'll talk a little bit more in a moment about what some of those efforts are, but just the great political and public support and public funding support, because with our modest budget and even with post funds, there's no way we could be doing the work that we're doing. So there's been huge investment that I'll talk about here in a moment. So now I'm going to transition from Marion's really beautiful and very clean slides to my very wordy ones. So sorry about that. But there's a lot of information to convey here. And there were a lot of policy wonks in the room. So some of this played well. But so I'll talk about the state policy in a moment. I have some slides that give a little bit more information about those in greater detail. But just as a recap of information that many of you are already familiar with, but you know, the city of San Jose enacted its zoning and general plan land use changes in 2021 to change the zoning in North Coyote Valley from campus industrial to agriculture and open space. The following month, in December of 2021,
The county also changed its zoning and general plan land use designation to emphasize agriculture in Mid-Coyote Valley. And the urban, I wanted to say for San Jose too, the urban reserve in Mid-Coyote Valley was pulled back, meaning that it was again under the jurisdiction of the county. And so it was very important that the county made its changes right away before somebody put some major development plans there in the interim. Also, earlier this year, with a lot of partnership work by the Open Space Authority, the City of San Jose incorporated a natural and working lands element into their climate action plan that otherwise included a lot of building standards, water conservation, greenhouse gas reduction, transportation types of plans, which are all very important, but now it also has a natural working lands element. So it's all very well integrated. The state has funded $54 million to date just in Coyote Valley. That's through a number of different agencies that you see here on the slide through grants. And then also there was a budget allocation, which is separate from the grant program. Assemblymember Oshkalra provided $10 million through a budget allocation a couple of years ago for purchase of Laguna Seca from Post. And then there's also been the local funding, both from the City of San Jose through their bond measure back in 2018, as well as ongoing allocations for the feasibility study that we were talking about earlier. They put in $100,000 for that through their budget, and also funded wildlife corridor signage in years prior to that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about these bills, and please feel free to raise your hand or interrupt as I'm going through these, because there's a lot of technical detail.
Please don't interrupt. These meetings, they're public meetings. Your questions have to be on the record. If it's not important enough to stop and be recognized, it's not important enough to stop the meeting, okay? So use your lights, be recognized. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Please scratch what I just said previously. So AB 2344, I'm going in reverse sequential order here. That's the most recent bill of this series that was passed. And it was introduced by Assemblymember Laura Friedman. And what it does is set up a connection between Caltrans and the Department of Fish and Wildlife, much more of a connection than had existed before, to actually inventory where there are needs for these kinds of landscape linkages. And as I mentioned earlier, we have put ourselves on the map, but they are still going out and studying other locations around the state that need better wildlife infrastructure on state highways and other state roads. So they're currently taking that on. And in fact, because of this bill, $3 million was allocated just to hire staff at both Caltrans and the Department of Fish and Wildlife. That's unheard of, right? So it really speaks to not only the recognition that Assemblymember Friedman brought to this issue, but that it's being considered very important throughout the state, much more so over time. So it requires Caltrans and Department of Fish and Wildlife to work together on that inventory, and then also to remediate those wildlife barriers, and it establishes a program to do so. And so we're very hopeful that over time, as more funds are allocated to these kinds of linkage programs, and once we have a design in place for some of that infrastructure, that will get some state funding. Two examples of funding that I can mention are that $63 million are currently allocated to the Wildlife Conservation Board in the climate bonds that are going through the state legislature, just for wildlife connections. So that's a really good chunk of money around the state. And then over 300 million are in the federal infrastructure bill that was passed, I think two years ago. And that money is available for the kind of infrastructure that we're talking about as well. So all really good developments as we're doing this feasibility study. Hopefully the money is still there when we get the feasibility study done. In the prior year, Senators Allen and Cortese, and Senator Cortese former supervisor here in the county, covers our area in San Jose. They authored a bill that allowed the Department of Fish and Wildlife to provide mitigation credits to Caltrans when there was some sort of project that helped wildlife move across those highways, like underneath them. And so there didn't used to be an incentive to do that. A lot of regional staff at Caltrans were very interested in incorporating those kinds of designs, but there was no reason for them to do it until this bill set up that mitigation credit program. Now, when a highway is being modified, they build the infrastructure, they get mitigation credits, and then next time there's an impact by a new highway project, they get credit for what they did previously for that infrastructure, for that wildlife infrastructure. And then I think you're also all familiar with AB 948 that set up Coyote Valley as a landscape of statewide significance. And that was thanks to Assemblymember Osh Kalra. And so that is also something that is currently in the assembly version of the climate bond that's going through the legislature. Currently, it's written as $30 million for Coyote Valley specifically to implement 30 by 30, which means biodiversity and equitable public access. So part of the biodiversity, of course, is wildlife infrastructure. So if that stays in there by the end of the legislative session and it gets signed into law and then gets voted into existence by the public in March on the ballot, then we will have additional funding to put towards our wildlife infrastructure. I'm not going to go through all these in detail, but it's just a list showing how many regional and statewide planning efforts have been done that focus on or include Coyote Valley as an important wildlife corridor. Pretty extensive list. So, of course, I've been mentioning 30 by 30 already, but there are other state initiatives that our work in Coyote Valley aligns with really well. One of those is the Natural and Working Lands Climate Smart Strategies. It's sort of the complement to 30 by 30. It's a report that has recommendations for mitigating climate change, meaning reducing greenhouse gases. And as we know, protecting farmland and ranch land to reduce sprawl, reduces vehicle miles traveled, and that kind of thing counts greatly towards the goals set up by that initiative. There's also the Air Resources Board scoping plan that increasingly incorporates natural and working lands as a strategy to reduce greenhouse gas production. Just briefly, I also wanted to mention some of these intersections with other sectors that we've been getting more and more involved with. The housing sector, I think we talked previously about the 8-year rotating regional housing needs allocation that the state of California puts on regional governments. And that allocated a large number of housing units to Santa Clara County, which was inappropriate given the county's focus on resource protection. And so we're trying to deal with that in the next round so that doesn't happen again. And Lena Ian, our community impact and policy specialist, is writing a white paper in partnership with the Nature Conservancy to address that issue and have recommendations to the state of California and local governments, especially association.
We have a question from Aaron.
Oh,
Okay.
thanks, Mark. Thanks for, hey, just circling back and come back into the mitigation for wildlife pollution, things of that nature and passages. Is it looking at the map there in Metcalf to Bailey? Is that the section that was in highlighted red that you're looking at trying to go ahead and eliminate the barrier there?
So I want me to go back up.
Blood Alley? Is that the area of focus?
That was highlighted in red on
That one then.
on that.
It looks like it's Bailey to Metcalf area, kind of plus or minus.
Yeah, for the
Is that-
feasibility study and through the chair, for the feasibility study that's currently underway that Post is leading on, that is their study area.
That's the area of concentration. That
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's based on the data that they collected from that roadkill report back in 2019.
It looked like it's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Roadkill, yeah.
Well, yeah, from the previous slide, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So one more thing I wanted to mention here, the energy sector. So there have been recent proposals for energy projects in Coyote Valley. And these are, transmission line fortification so that we have a more resilient grid, and also battery projects. So those are all very important for us to have to adapt to climate change and just build more resilience for our communities. So we're very supportive of those types of projects, but want to have those located in a place where they're not going to interfere with the wildlife linkage and the other natural resource benefits that the public can accrue from Coyote Valley. So we're getting increasingly involved with and informed about how those sectors intersect with conservation, and then hopefully getting better integration of plans in the future at the state of California that put all these sectors together, not that they're as siloed as they currently are. So, and then here just listing.
That's a natural pause. I think Bob has something.
Oh, sure.
I do. I'm kind of curious, and part of these studies, have they ever done a study on the success of, you mentioned bridging and then tunnels, which is more successful? I found in the past I worked for the zoo with wild animals for a while. They would probably not be inclined to go over a bridge because they wouldn't be protected. The downside or the problem in Coyote is also a water area, and they may or may not be able to successfully do the tunnel. So curiosity on those two items.
So through the chair, very good questions, and I'm not the best person to answer them, honestly, but I can tell you what I know. And so regarding the undercrossings, I have heard what you just mentioned, that in times of storms or just because of the shallow groundwater table, there could be difficulties with undercrossings that it's difficult for animals to get through. That said, I think there have been plans for undercrossings under the high-speed rail tracks if and when that goes in. So obviously there is some science that says it can work at least a majority of the time. With the overcrossings, I know there's been limited investment so far in California. There is the Wallace Annenberg Wildlife Bridge over 101 in the Santa Monica Mountains that's currently being built, but not much else. But in other states, there have been a lot of wildlife overcrossings, and also in Canada. And so I would just assume from that if some of them have been invested in and there are more being invested in over time, that there is some success, but I don't have any data that says that for sure.
Quick question then. I'm assuming, I don't know, are any of those covered? Because a covered bridge would be fine. They just don't like to be exposed.
I've not heard of any covered wildlife crossings. Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, no, thank you, and good questions. So this is just a list of partners, especially highlighting our California partners here for that particular audience. And so that's pretty much it. So I'm happy to entertain any other questions that people have.
Thank you. I say this is a favorite topic, just because these are the animals that are the easiest to identify with, and like maybe that that certainly doesn't mean they deserve our sympathy anymore, but it does make them easier to identify with. And the thing is the bigger animals have much more problems with respect to genetic diversity and just also population maintenance in general. So this work in this area is just absolutely critical if you like the big furry animals, because they absolutely don't have a chance in this valley without this stuff. So yay us. Alice.
Thanks, Mark. I just to echo Lauren's comment, I think this is among some of the most meaningful work that's being done. So I'm so happy to hear this update. Do you have suggestions or recommendations for how we as CAC members can be involved in helping support the work that the Open Space Authority is involved in, along with all these other fantastic partners? Where are there opportunities for us to get involved, whether it's writing to, elected members, or other ways that we can support all the work that's being done in this space.
Yeah, through the chair. Great question. We do from time to time ask partners to write letters of support. Those usually tend to come from elected leaders and nonprofits that are involved in similar activity, like Green Foothills is a great example. But individuals writing letters can be very powerful too. And that I would say that would mostly be targeted towards state legislators when there's policy or funding to be supported. Sometimes also at the federal level, and I'll have an update about that a little bit later. But it's a really good point, and I think there will be another opportunity after the recess that's just starting or just started in the state legislature. So come September, there could very well be opportunities for writing letters. So I'll definitely keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Allison. And I heard in that, in addition to letter writing, if there's any other, opportunities, we heard about engagement stuff from Gavin earlier, and I don't know how often those worlds overlap, but I think you would find a lot of people interested.
Well, and definitely educating the public about the importance of the wildlife linkages. That's great to do at any of these outreach opportunities. Yeah.
To piggyback off of what Allison and Lauren are saying, how are you telling the story to the public? I mean, it's very impactful and compelling when I see it here, but how are you sharing this message with the general public?
Yeah, thank you for that. And through the chair, constantly on social media, that's the main way that we get those messages out. And I'm sure you're seeing on Instagram and Facebook that we're pushing out information, including about the mountain lion that was killed on June 30th, but also generally about, the cute, cuddly animals that get a lot of attention, but also others. And then just connecting the dots between that and climate adaptation. So for resilient neighborhoods. But
Question, do you do the media outreach calls? I know sometimes at Valley Water, when we have a big story, our media team will send out a press brief or press release and then try to get some bites or attention on that. Are you doing the same thing so we could see it in the news as well, or maybe hear it on our radio stations, NPR or anything like that?
Yeah, great question. And yes, we do send out press releases, and because of the Instagram post about the mountain lion on June 30th, we got 5 media hits right away in the next couple of days. And so that was really well covered. But then for planned events like Mayana Yakima, when we do an event, actually there'll be a couple of events this fall, and we'll send out a media advisory in advance, get media there, and also then send out a press release once we've had the event to reinforce the talking points, and trying to get speakers that attract media attention too is very important. So we're and I don't want to jinx it, but we're hoping that the commitment from Congresswoman Lofgren to speak at our opening of Mayana Yakima Coyote Ridge will be she'll be able to make it, right? She's pretty darn busy, but if she's there, the media will be there and we'll get a lot of attention for it. And that project is all about biodiversity and public access. So great story to tell that really translates to everything we're doing in Coyote Valley. But great question. Thank you.
Thank you. And that story came to me Instagram first, and then I got an email from the Open Space Authority that was more or less like the press release. And then not long after that was links to the various local outlets that had picked it up and done stories on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't seen that kind of rapid fire coverage about anything in a while, and for better or for worse, for whatever that means. That was a very powerful story. So,
If I may just quickly follow up on that, because the Instagram post generated a lot of comments too, directly, in social media, and they were overwhelmingly extremely positive, and emojis with tears and hearts, and people love wildlife, and as well they should, right? And so that does generate a whole lot of interest. And to your earlier point, Mr. Chair, about connecting, like people connecting with the animals, what we heard at the summit back in early July was P22, which was a very famous mountain lion that recently passed away. Its memorial had hundreds of people, more people than they could accommodate at the memorial service, that wanted to go and express their regrets about the mountain lion's death. And they said that part of the reason that people connected with the mountain lion was because it reflected so many things in their own lives. You know, here was a mountain lion at the edge of civilization, but just couldn't quite make it work. They were getting shooed from one place to another, couldn't find a home. You know, couldn't find a mate that worked out for them. They were just trying to live, you know, eke out an existence in this urban-ish landscape, and we're just having difficulty making it work. And so many people identified with that. There's a lot of different stories to tell about wildlife that people can connect with, and we just got to find out what those are. So there's another opportunity to your earlier question, Allison, is if you have ideas for stories about wildlife that we haven't yet done in our newsletter or social media that would help connect to people, please bring them our way.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, again, powerful word, powerful story. So much.
Thank you.
I don't see any more questions here. Do we have anything from the public? So they will be given 3 minutes. I see none. So I think that is all of our informational items. Now we go to our informational reports. First from our board liaison. Renetta, thank you.
I'm going to ask Lonnie to jump in on this one. The most important action the board has taken was to grant the grant programs, and most of the CAC recommendations were followed. The grants amounts were somewhat reduced so that we could give one more grant than had been recommended by staff. There was only one very disappointed candidate, and that was the native gardens. And so I'm going to meet with her this week to take a look at what they've been working on, and I'll talk a little bit about how she might be able to improve things for next round. So, Lonnie did a fantastic job reporting on the CAC recommendations.
I want to thank Lonnie and Steve for meeting as a subcommittee to prepare that. So Lonnie, if you have anything to share with us.
It was very awkward to not look at their faces. You're sitting there. Oh, can I ask, what was the other that was
Our city forest was
the
funded.
our city forest
Yeah.
did get, okay,
And
that makes me happy.
Vegetation also, and I think the amounts were dropped to like 160. You know, anyway, so they had all been 250, and so it sort of reduced everyone just a little bit, so we make room for the vegetation, and then our city forest.
Our city forest, if everyone remembers, is the one that failed due to a tie. And it was also the person who was not available to present for us, but they were there to present to the board last week.
That's about it.
Okay, thank you, Renetta. All right, after that, general manager or staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lee Rauscher, Assistant General Manager, Administrative and Field Operations. A couple of quick updates for you. I also wanted to thank the CAC members on behalf of the Urban Grants Program team, Megan Draker, Jackie Latham, and my fellow AGM, Matt Freeman. They wanted to extend their thanks for your service on the review of the grant applications and recommendations forward. They'll be joining your September 25th. I've got the meeting date correct. They'll be here September 25th to get your feedback on your experience for the grant reviews and recommendations. And I look forward to seeing you. Also, in the meantime, you should have received a release from Charlotte Graham over the weekend regarding the grant announcements. If you aren't getting those newsletters, let us know. Our field crew and planning team are busy getting Mayan, Oyakma, Coyote Ridge ready to open to the public in late August. Stay tuned for an update next month to let you know exactly when the gates are going to open. And lastly, you heard from Gavin earlier about a volunteer opportunity at Spina Farms on October 7th. So coincidentally, our planning, field, and natural resources team are planning a joint UNM CAC meeting on, I'll give you the date now, but Caroline's going to follow up with polling. They're targeting September 28th from 2 to 4 to come out to Spina Farms and get a tour and get familiar with that property. So Caroline, like I said, we'll be in touch soon to poll and make sure that we can make that the official date. And that's what I have. And Mark, I think you've got some.
Yeah, I just wanted to update everyone that the work that we're doing at the federal level, so far so good with the request for what's called a community project funding request, otherwise known as earmark, in the budget for $800,000 for an ADA trail at Coyote Valley Space Preserve. So that was presented by Congressman Panetta, and it made it through its first and what we're told is the biggest hurdle in the process, which is the Transportation Subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee. So now it has to go to full appropriations, and then it goes to the floor, and then the House and the Senate combine their appropriations. So it still has a ways to go. And we won't finally know probably until early next calendar year, but so far so good.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Mark. Now we open up for any committee members who have anything to report. Yeah, Aaron first.
No, nothing to report myself, but just a quick question since I'm such a new member of this committee here. In terms of, I think open space is super generous in what they do for grants to the community. And I'm wondering, is there any follow-up or feedback in terms of what was accomplished through the grants themselves, and how does that feed back into the CAC?
Great, great question. We do require reports from each grantee. So our grants team does get that information. We have had the occasional, is probably the correct term, report out to, I can't remember if we reported to the board or to the CAC. I think I've been to the CAC a couple of years ago. Kind of a light recap of some of the results, certainly not grant by grant. But if that's something that the committee is interested in, I'd be glad to work with the grants team. Mark and I would be to get an update in the future.
Kind of like a report card as
Yeah.
how that did.
Yeah, I'd highlight some of the projects. It's I know in the past we've tried to do some on-site visits and then COVID hit, so slides are the next best thing, but we could talk to the grants team and see what's possible.
Yeah, and I can add as well. I know our communications team, at certain times in the grant cycle gets information about some of those outcomes from the projects that are funded by our program, and puts those out on social media and in our newsletter as well.
Great PR too as well, huh?
Terrific. Yeah, it's really important to
Yeah, in combination.
let people know what good all those funds are doing out in the community. And there's also our website with the urban success stories. So that is an ongoing capture of results from our urban grant program over time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Because I was going to say on top of that in addition to getting that feedback to us, it would to take it a step further, it'd be great to have it somewhere, publicly available, not just, I mean, I don't know that we'd want to do like a running tally, like here you can click on every grant that's been given and see where it is now, but somewhere between that and a success stories page, somewhere in between there would probably be something that, you know, that be of value on a number of different levels. Cool. Any other committee member reports? And I don't think we have any subcommittees sitting except for you guys, and you're done, nothing else to report. Okay, before Dan gets out the door at 8:30, good night, Dan. We will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all so much. I'll see you all again in a couple of months, if not soon.
Thanks for the hat.